going to pick three things that we noticed from this Sunday. Jenks, go first.
All right. First, Pittsburgh winning against Atlanta was huge. Obviously, they got to make it through the first 4 games. Atlanta's a tough game. They are at home. They had that advantage. It was a real nip and tuck. They pull it out, obviously, in overtime. Big, big win for them. If they can go 2-2, they're in, I think, very, very good shape. They got 1 under their belt. All they got to do is go 1-3. 1-2, and the rest of the I didn't realize math would be involved here. in the rest of those 4 games. So I think that's a huge game and a huge win for Pittsburgh. New England crushing the Bengals.
We're going to go back and forth. Settle down.
All right, go.
Don't get ahead of yourself. By the way, maybe Matt Ryan. We don't know. It's too early. Maybe Matt Ryan.
Yeah, he had a duck at the end of the game that made me think, really? Because I used to believe in Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I know, but it was a bad year last year. Maybe a little banged up. I'm just saying. All of a sudden, we don't know about Matt Ryan. Redskins have beat the Cowboys last night in really about as an exciting a 13-7 game as has ever been played in the NFL. A lot of mistakes by the Cowboys. As a Redskin fan, they've lost that game for the last 12 years. Like they took 3 points off the board, and then they got close and had a shorter field goal, and the holder, the punter, Josh Bidwell, dropped the snap. And then the Cowboys at the end of the game, they get that nonsense Cowboy idiot mistake, Tashard Choice fumbling at the end of the half. Their only touchdown, D'Angelo Hall getting a 50-yard fumble return at the end of the half. And then at the end of the game, the Cowboys drive and they appear to score a touchdown, and there's a hold. And that's the end of the game, and the Redskins win. And every other year since the first Gibbs era ended, the Redskins lose that game. McNabb didn't play that well, although he showed some. It's like there's a new era. They're competent people in charge. Maybe Dan Snyder has shut up. I'm still dubious. It just seems like luck changed. It's just one game. There's no sample size yet. It feels like that game would have been lost, and all of a sudden it's won, and there's this reason to hope a little in Redskin land.
All that is true, but there's a much better explanation for what happened on Sunday night. 2 words for you. Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips is a loser. And he will always lose, and he'll find unique and interesting ways to lose.
The Cowboys definitely found a unique and interesting way to lose last night.
That Tashard Choice play at the end of the first half, Wade Phillips all over it. Yeah. It made no sense. And he's trying to lose a game. He's trying to figure out, how do I lose this game? Oh, I'll do a pitch to Tashard Choice with 4 seconds left in the half so he can get the ball ripped away from him.
Tashard Choice needs to know to go down in that situation. But Michael Schur made this point last night. But when you get angry at your team on its own 38-yard line and yell, why don't you try a Hail Mary? That's why. Take a knee. You're not going to get a 62-yard touchdown. You're just not. Take a knee.
And that holding penalty at the end to get the touchdown back, that's what happens on a Wade Phillips team. I don't know how. It's an intangible. He spreads loserdom throughout all the players and says, find a way to lose.
By the way,
that's one of the most talented teams in the NFL. They scored 7 points.
That was a hold, by the way.
Oh, it was definitely a hold.
As much of a hold as you can get. And by the way, if he hadn't held him, the Brian Arakpo probably hits Tony Romo, and they lose that way.
Yeah, that's totally true. I grant you that. All right. Now, New England crushed the Bengals with no mercy, as usual. At the end of the game, it's 4th down. They should kick a field goal.
To go up 17 points, 3 scores?
Yeah, it's the most obvious thing of all time. They're like, no, we'd like to crush you a little further. Yeah. We're going to go for it. Now, they didn't make it, but it's just a philosophy. Belichick is back in that sense, right? But much more importantly, Brady's back. He did a great job. Welker's back. It's just one game. Of course, we're going to say that throughout week 1. And it's the Bengals, so come on, right? But at the same time, I look at that and I think, okay, everybody's ready to anoint the Jets. You better calm down because these Patriots mean business.
Right. Everything's too early to tell. My whole premise is going to be settle down. Let's wait for week 2. But the Bengals are horrible. I largely agree with you on the Patriots. That'll be a fun team to watch. The 49ers. You say what you want about Alex Smith. Apparently what you were saying about Alex Smith is true. I'm not a believer in Alex Smith. I thought the defense and the running game and the bolstered offensive line with the really solid defense meant that they were going to run through what is a terrible NFC West. I mean, as bad a division as we've seen in years. It turns out it's a worse division because the 49ers could be part of that horribleness. They came in and they dominated the first quarter and a half. They were only up 6-0, but they dominated it. Smith ended up with 2 interceptions, and that game just fell apart, and they lost to Seattle 31-6. Alex Smith looked largely incompetent. Michael Crabtree, as you've pointed out, was nowhere to be found. It was as deflating a loss as the 49ers have had in years because for the first time in years they had actual expectations. which they not only failed to meet, they didn't come close to meeting. I can't believe those guys lost to the Seahawks 31-6. So I thought that was significant, and all of a sudden that division is back, opened up. I still don't know who the hell else is going to win it, but 6-10 may win it. And Pete Carroll, a big win in his first game back to the NFL.
All right, I love Mike Singletary. And their defense, of course, everybody had high hopes for their defense. So did I, right? Frank Gore's a great running back, although for however many weeks he lasts, and wait till he gets hurt and then see what happens to their offense, right? Because he usually does get hurt at some point. Now, Alex Smith, Michael Crabtree, whatever. It's a big fat zero in the passing game. Here's what I think of their passing game.
Cannot play with them. Cannot win with them. Cannot coach with them. Can't do it.
Can't do it, okay? And so if you were high on San Francisco, I'd bring it back down.
I think Michael Crabtree still can be a good player. He is obviously not trying to be a good player. He doesn't have the commitment right now to be a good player. Anyway, I think the Niners will still win the NFC West because, come on, did you watch that Cardinals-Rams game? It's like a high school game.
Yeah, this whole division is a disaster.
Right, that's largely why I think they can win it. All right, your final point.
And then the Colts get beat by the Texans. Okay, first of all, I think it says more about the Texans than it does the Colts. The Colts, obviously, Manning had 433 yards, 3 touchdowns. They can still play some offense. But they couldn't keep up with the Texans. And the Texans, have a great passing game. All of a sudden, they have a great running game, or back to having a good running game, better than they've ever had. Their defense is okay. I mean, again, the Colts kind of shredded them a little bit.
Yeah, but a lot of those yards came once the Texans were in control.
Absolutely. So you know what? Maybe there's a new sheriff in town with the Texans. But the Texans are the kind of team that you definitely need 2 or 3 games before you make that decision. I was just, and the Colts, their defense doesn't exist. So that's a big, big problem for them.
And you saw what happened to the Colts, as has happened in the past when Bob Sanders isn't in the game. 100, and mainly it affected him here, it would appear, in the running game. 100 and, I can't remember. Oh, tough schedule in the NFL for the Texans. But, Matt Schaub led the league in passing last year. More passing yards than Manning, more passing yards than Brady, more passing yards than Breeze. And then here, the Texans barely threw for any yards. It was all done on the ground, with Arian Foster running for 872 yards and 11 touchdowns in a single game.
Yeah. Man, that was amazing. All right.
With Hitler Jones as his lead blocker. Very quickly, my final point, I've cheated and made it 4 points. Quarterbacks you thought were horrible, they're horrible. Matt Moore from UCLA looks horrible. Did you see some of those passes at the end of the game against the Giants, a game that had, I think, 8 turnovers? They looked horrible.
I think it might have been 9 turnovers, and, they looked like ducks. And the whole time I'm thinking, you know what, I know you run every time. Just run it again.
Yeah, they were still in the game. They should have been running. He looked horrible. Jake Delhomme had moments where he looked okay, but that interception that Rondé Barber had that nearly returned for a touchdown, it was so vintage Jake Delhomme. He's running away from guys he can't run away from. A sidearm floated pass at a key moment in the game. Barber picked it off so easily and nearly ran it in, setting up a touchdown.
He might be the Chuck Knobloch of the NFL.
Yeah, it's just
he's got mental issues.
I want him to succeed. I really do.
I do too. I used to really like him.
Yeah, I like Cleveland. I like him. I wanted to see. It's just Jake, get sacked, man. Just get sacked.
Yeah, you've taken plenty of snacks. Yeah, go for one more.
Yeah,
and then don't throw the pick.
And then finally, what many people thought about the NFC is true. The Packers, who didn't even get it going on offense, still ended up dominating the Eagles in Philadelphia and looked good doing it. And Aaron Rodgers is going to throw for a lot more than 188 yards most time when Ryan Grant gets back, or Brandon Jackson. They're going to run the ball too. Packers are going to win a lot of games. Packers and Saints. It's been one game. Everything we say could be wrong. Packers and Saints would appear to be teams to beat in the NFC.
The key to the Saints is Jonathan Wilma. He's phenomenal. He changes the entire defense. Even with Darren Sharper out, they held the Vikings to 9 points. So it's a huge boost to the Saints.